Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts. Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. I think we should take the offering right here and just go home. I don't know if it can get much better. Whew, this is the day. An angel appears at a faculty meeting and tells the dean, "In return for your unselfish and exemplary behavior, the Lord will reward you with your choice of infinite wealth, infinite wisdom, or infinite beauty." "Give me infinite wisdom," declares the dean without hesitation. "Done." And the angel disappears into a cloud of smoke. All heads now turn to the dean, who sits surrounded by a faint halo of light. "Well," says a colleague, "say something brilliant." The dean stands and, with the poise of Socrates, opens his mouth and says, "I should have taken the money." No, it's just a funny joke. We'll be starting a prosperity series in 2 weeks. I'll tell you more about that. This is actually week 4 of the 5-part series on removing the obstacles that our vision may be revealed. Well, we believe in unity. Unity is an evolutionary spiritual teaching. In some traditions, you achieve a certain awakening or salvation, and then you coast, I guess. But we actually don't teach that. We teach that there is an eternal, ongoing unfolding of the infinite within. So we're never done. There's always more God to express and experience in and through and as our lives. And the whole time we're here, as long as we're drawing breath, there is a vision for the next greater good. That beautiful song that Jean Marie sang, "I surrender to my greater, higher good." That's what it's about. It's stepping into a greater experience of who we're called to be, of who we already are. We just haven't been able to act out like that yet. It's who we already are. And so what keeps us from doing that? There are old beliefs or ideas that are blocks, obstacles from the vision. And so that's our work here. We've been talking about each week. I've been trying to offer some practical tools and teaching that will help us remove those false ideas and limited identities so that we can step into who we truly are and experience greater freedom, greater fulfillment. Does that sound like good thing to do? All right. Well, thank you for being with us today. First week we talked about how do we find that compelling vision. It's not something you check off a list. It's something you are and you become to a greater degree. The second week, we talked about our practices of affirmation and denial as tools of removing the obstacles. Last week, we talked about forgiveness, because there's nothing that will keep you stuck more than resentment and unforgiveness. People have been sharing with me all week that I was definitely preaching stuff that they didn't want to hear but needed to last week. And then today, we're talking about the body. The title I've chosen is Care for the Temple. Well, the body is not an obstacle to the vision. It's the way we think about the body And it's the way we treat the body that I believe are the obstacles that stand in the way of revealing the vision of God's good in our lives. And I don't know about you, but I have a little bit of a love-hate thing going on with the body. I've had those moments of just sublime beauty and transcendence. I remember one time I was ministering at a church in Reno. At the time I was living in Dallas, but I had developed a relationship with this church, Center for Spiritual Living in Reno. It became my home church. Right out of ministerial school, I worked there for 2 years before I came here. And I had been there a couple of times, and the music director on a Sunday night after we'd completed all the concert and the Sunday services, he said, like, "What time do you go home tomorrow?" And I said, "I don't know, 3 in the afternoon." He said, "Do you want to go to Tahoe?" I said, "Is it close?" I had never been. He said, "Yeah, I'll come get you at 8 in the morning." And so we drove. It's about 45 minutes away from Reno. And so we're going up Mount Rose Pass in the mountains. And then we come over the top of the pass. And we come back down. And if you've ever been there, it's breathtaking. This turquoise blue lake and surrounded by mountains. Still snow on the top in July. And it took my breath away. And we went down, he grew up there and he knew the spot, and we found this path down to the water and climbed up these gigantic granite boulders that had been there for millennia, and sat there and felt the sun upon my face. It was a moment of such sublime beauty and connection. And if I didn't have a body, I wouldn't have been able to experience it. And I was so grateful to have this conveyance, this earth suit, to move around this earth. And then I've had the other part, where I've been resentful of my body not looking the way it's supposed to. You know, they say that some ancestors, evolutionarily speaking, the ones who were not able to store extra calories as fat, they all died in the famine. So lucky us. We inherited those adaptive genes that allow us to store extra calories, which my body does really well. And then at other times I had a back issue and I was in pain for 1.5 years with every step. And I just felt resentful and ungrateful for my body and wonder, why do we have them? And it's a big question. It's a big existential, philosophical question. If we are, as we teach in Unity, birthless, deathless, changeless, eternal expressions of God's light, why do we have these sacks of fluid and bone with bad plumbing? Why? Why do we have them? Well, in a moment, I'm going to give you the New Thought answer to that philosophically. But before that, I was trying to think of a story or a legend or a myth that would somehow convey what I thought. And I couldn't find one, so lucky you, I wrote one. I call this Allegory for the Body. Once there lived a maiden in a kingdom of pure white light. There were no shadows in this land, for the light came from everywhere. While it was beautiful, there was a sameness to everything, for the light was pure and contained no other colors save white. And one day, though she didn't know what had changed, the young maiden noticed that something had. She felt a sense of something lacking, and she began to search the kingdom. But not knowing what it was she was looking for, her search was in vain. She became disappointed and dissatisfied, though she couldn't really say why. And she was in this state for such a long time that the other people noticed and began to whisper. An elder of the kingdom one day saw her and came to her and said, "What is it you're seeking, my child?" She looked at him and replied, "I don't know, elder. It just seems that there should be more." And he smiled at her in a way that conveyed both love and pain and recognition. And after a moment, he reached his hands to his neck, and she noticed for the first time that he was wearing a very heavy chain. And at the end of that chain was something that looked like a hand mirror, though its glass was clear. "I once was as you are now," he said, with great understanding and compassion. And with an effort, he pulled the heavy chain from around his neck and he held it before him. "If you would choose, my daughter, I would give you this seeing glass. And when you have accepted the weight of its chain and you look through its glass, you will see this world differently. And perhaps you will see what it is you are seeking. I must tell you that you will feel burdened in a way that you never have before. But with this burden comes many gifts." And without knowing why, the young girl knew at once that she believed him utterly. And she knew that she must accept the chain and the glass as though she was destined to carry it. "I will accept this burden," she said, "and this gift." "Very well," he replied. "You will carry it as long as you need to. Someday will come, as this day has come to me, when you will know that your time with it is complete, and you will pass it on." As tenderly and as compassionately as he could, he placed the chain over her head, and when his hands released the weight upon her shoulders, the shock of the heaviness nearly brought her to the ground. She cried out, more from shock than pain. "Look now, my child," he said. And with a great effort, she lifted the glass before her, and she cried out again, this time from wonder and from awe. For the world that she had always known as filled with pure white light now was made of color, many colors of seemingly infinite variety. And yes, she saw the light she had always known, but also she saw shadow, darkness even. But somehow the light was not diminished by the darkness. Instead, this contrast made the light seem more pure and more powerful. After recovering from the sheer power of this vision, she turned to ask the question of the elder and was surprised to find that he was gone. There was so much she wanted to ask. And so she began her new life. She learned to move differently, much more slowly and carefully. She experienced for the first time fatigue and weariness and pain. The chains hurt so much of the time. But when she looked through the wondrous glass, she experienced the world with such depth and wonder that the pain and the heaviness were able to be borne. When she saw the flowers in the field, she not only saw the depth of their color and the richness of their form as she could not have seen before, but also she saw for the first time that they were temporary. Before, the light was so powerful she couldn't see the shadow of death and decay, but she saw it now, and she wept, with both a transcendent joy at the beauty and a heartbreaking sadness at the loss. She felt grief for the first time, but also discovery. Death, yes, but also birth and growth and change. Over time, she became wise and strong and greatly revered by her people. And after a long time, far longer than you or I could understand, one day she saw a boy who looked confused and discontented, and it seemed as though he were searching for something and not finding it. And she walked up to him with compassion and with gentleness, and she said, "My child, what are you seeking?" It's a metaphor, but you get what I'm trying to show you? There are things about reality that you cannot experience without a physical body. And there is a burden that comes with this temporal, carnal existence. There is something, not carnal, incarnate. Carnal is the Catholic thing, right? Okay. Incarnate, without taking form. We begin to open ourselves to a unique perspective point on the whole. When we take form, we are a unique release and receive point of the infinite in a way that we cannot experience any other way. And a price must be paid. We do experience pain, and we do experience birth, and we do experience death and loss. But the price is worth the experience of knowing God in a way that cannot be known in any other. I was at Unity Village many years before I became a minister, and I was doing music for a retreat there. And Walter Starkey, does anyone remember Walter? He's a wonderful man, teacher in the lineage of Joel Goldsmith. And he was there teaching, and he's lived in San Antonio, outside of San Antonio. But he said that he asked this question once: why do we have bodies? If we really are the light of God expressing, why don't we just do that all the time for eternity? Why do we come into this experience of birth and change and death? And he said in deep meditation, it was revealed to him this, that the body is like the hand that shields the flame of a candle, so we can move through the space-time continuum and remain intact. Ernest Holmes, who was the author of The Science of Mind, the founder of the Science of Mind movement, religious science, he said it this way: the physical universe is the manifest body of God. It is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. If God is infinite, it must know its own nature in infinite ways and infinite forms. And the fact that we are here shows us that this is one of the ways that God must know and must reveal its own nature, is through these physical, frail, fragile human bodies and experience of being born and dying in a body. And that's why we're here, to get to discover God anew every moment, to get to reveal some new precious aspect of the infinite that can come no other way. And as I mentioned, we can be in a love and or hate relationship. We can move with the body and its own rhythms, and we can experience, I remember things, hugging my grandmother, feeling the soft body that she had and the smell of Pall Mall cigarettes and hairspray. You know what I mean? Just my grandma. I just loved her. Beautiful experience of love of God through physical being. And I've also experienced the hate, the resistance to my own body, the feeling of something being lacking or wrong. And when we're in that resistance, when we're in that painful wishing it were different, we do block the vision of fulfillment that God is trying to birth through us. And so there are two ways I think that we can shift it. Two ways I'm going to offer you today that I believe that we can remove the obstacle in relationship with the body from our path and step into our lives more fully and more freely. The first is, did you know that we can heal our bodies by the power of mind? Did you know that? Our movement was founded upon this. And if you don't believe that your body is listening to your mind, think about your most embarrassing moment right now. You can feel something move right here, can't you? Yeah. When you're embarrassed, you can feel your body respond. When you're afraid, your heart rate will increase. Your body is listening to your mind. Today we talk about mind-body medicine. That, down at MD Anderson, they're teaching it now. Meditation, mindfulness as co-healing mechanism to whatever else the doctors need to do. There is something happening in the way that we are in consciousness and the way we are in physicality. It's one thing, it's connected. As Ernest Holmes said, it's the necessary and logical outcome of consciousness, is having this physical experience. Mother Myrtle Fillmore, one of our co-founders, she healed her body using this spiritual principle. Talked about that on week 2 of this series. And her great revelation of truth when she said, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. She healed her body of tuberculosis. And it still happens. There are many people who are still experiencing physical healing. And sometimes it doesn't happen. And we'll talk more about that in a moment. But what occurred to me this week is that while we can use all of our spiritual energy to use mental, scientific prayer to heal our body, there is a simpler way to use our mind to heal our body. Do you want it? You guys like simple, right? Yes. What if we did this instead? What if we used our mind to choose healthier practices? Oh, really? That's getting applause? Oh, I don't know. I thought in the first service they were going to walk out during that line. I did. The old line in preaching said, preacher, you quit preaching and done gone to meddling now. What if we could choose to be in a different relationship with the way we treat our body? Would that not affect healing? If we could choose to eat healthy, life-giving food and in the right amounts. If we could choose to move our body in a way that strengthened us and gave us greater flexibility to the best of our ability. Everybody's body is different. What if we chose to show up differently for our own body? I think we could affect a great deal of healing. The second thing that I want to tell you about how we can remove the obstacles from our vision in terms of the body, as I said, we can heal our bodies using our mind. I think we also need to heal our mind about our body. Myrtle also said this. She had practiced affirmation by speaking life to the healing centers of the life-giving centers of her body. And then she said this, I asked their forgiveness for the foolish, ignorant course that I had pursued in the past, when I had condemned them and called them weak, inefficient, and diseased. How often do we curse our bodies? Some of us, we get this, and I'm talking about in many ways, both when the health is off, when we're struggling with some illness or thing there, but just like every day cursing our body. Many of us, we get this idea that the way we were at 19 is the way we're supposed to be forever. Biologically, that's not the way it typically works out. And we have this cultural ideal of youth and beauty that's held up to say, this is what a human being is supposed to look like. And there's so few of us ever look like, and the ones that do don't look like that very long. What if we could heal our mind about the way we think about our body and accepted and praised our bodies for all the functionality they have or do not have, for all the aesthetic beauty it has or does not have, and move from resistance and cursing the very life-giving centers of our body and instead moved into gratitude and appreciation, loving our physical body just as it is and as it ain't. Gratitude and love. Where are you noticing only the burden and not the gift that comes from having a body? But when we move into gratitude for all that our body is and isn't, we move into a new and truer relationship. It is a gift. 1 Corinthians 6, 19 and 20. Nope, this is the other one. Romans 12:1. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in the view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Romans 6, 19 and 20. Don't you know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you and whom you have received from God? You are not your own. You were bought at a price. Therefore, honor God with your bodies. Perhaps the healing that we're looking for is an acceptance of our bodies and recognizing that God wants to use our physical being to birth the vision forward. And you don't have to look like a supermodel. You don't have to fit in your wedding dress. You have to be willing to be grateful for all the body is and isn't, right where it is. I know it's tough. I'm asking us to do something challenging when culture tells us something different. As I mentioned, our culture praises youth and beauty, and many of us resist aging. I had a 0-year birthday last year. I hope to have at least 4 more. And other of my friends, as they hit that 30, 40, 50, 60 mark, it hurts in some way. There's some decline seen in aging, and I haven't felt that yet. It may come, but I just, I got to be 20 fully. I mean, I did it. I got to be 30. For 10 years, I got to be in my 30s. Did you? Yeah. 10 whole years. I was in my 30s. It was great. You guys just wait till you get there. It's great. I'm telling you. It's great. We get this idea that this is, that either the best is already gone or that it's not here yet, or no, this is it right now, this moment. This is the moment you're alive. This is the best right here. There's an idea too. I was at the Texas State Fair Friday afternoon, all day Friday, with my 5-year-old little daughter, daughter of my heart, Micah. She turns 6 next month, and it was quite an experience. There were 5 or 6 times that there were a lot of tears, but that was me, and she's okay. Yeah. She is a spirited child, as we like to say. Ain't no idea a good idea unless it's her idea. And she was having one of those moments where we weren't doing exactly what she wanted, and she was upset, and she was crying, and then my best friend Chris, we were talking with some parents there, and they said, you know, we get this idea that it's easy being a child. It's hard being 5. Every stage of life comes with some pain, some challenge, some new learning, some new growth opportunity, every stage. And as we age, there are things that are hard about it. But if we're willing to move into gratitude, into acceptance, into working with the rhythms of life rather than against them, there is a gift with the burden. Our bodies are temporary. We are here to love them, honor them, wear them lightly. There's a story that Ernest Holmes, it was told about him, that he lived and worked in Los Angeles, and he had a lot of Hollywood people as his clients in affirmative prayer. He had a practice of doing affirmative prayer, and people were healed and had their finances turned around and got movie deals. It was like a kind of a thing. And there was one movie star that had cancer and was in the hospital, and Ernest had gone to pray the prayer of healing over this man. He came home, and his wife Hazel said, what happened? And he said, the patient was healed. The patient died. Death is not a failure. Death is a healing. The end of life comes, and we all hope to live a long, healthy, pain-free life, and then we, wink out in existence. That doesn't happen for many of us, for very few of us. Some of us don't get all those 0-year birthdays we'd like. If we can be grateful for the breath that we have now, because you took a first breath, and you will release your last one. Everyone in between is precious. Are we there? Are we listening to it? Are we living for it? Are we awake? Are we seeing the color and the shadow and the light? There is a vision for you of a greater experience of your life. You will only experience it while you're in this body. Be grateful for these bodies. To close, there's a song by John Aston that I just love. I'll just read you the lyrics to close this sermon. Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come? To love, to serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember. To love, serve, and remember to love. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.